Normally when we multiply fractions, I tell you, multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, and then simplify. But today we're going to do a little bit different. We're going to factor first, simplify first, and then multiply it together at the end. And the reason we're going to do that is that's the same method we're going to use over here in just a minute. So on this side, with these two fractions, I'm going to factor all the numerators and denominators. And here's how that's going to look. 2 cannot factor, so it's just 2. I mean, technically it's 2 times 1, but we don't need to write the 1 every time. 9 factored is what? 3's, right? What's 15 factored? 5 and 3, and what's 4? 2 times 2. Okay, so that's step 1, factor the numerators and denominators. Step 2 is to combine them. And by combine, I don't mean multiply them back. I mean combine all the tops on top and all the bottoms on bottom. So I've got 2 from the left side top and 3 times 3 from the right side top. And then the bottoms, the denominators on the left, I had 5 times 3. And on the right, I had 2 times 2. Okay, so that's what I mean by combine them. And then for step 3, you simplify by canceling out common factors in the numerator and denominator. So when you're trying to cancel out, like if I have 1, 2 here, I look for another 2 on the bottom to cancel it out with. And there's a 2 here and a 2 here. This other 2 in the denominator stays because there's no matching 2 on top. So that one stays. What else do you see that cancels? A 3's? A 3's. Okay, 3. And then that's it. So now what do I have left over on top? 3. And on the bottom I have 5 times 2, which is 10. All right. So we factored. We put the factors together on the top and bottom, canceled out, wrote the leftovers. And that's what we're going to do here now with these expressions that have x's everywhere. One thing I like to do is, if you're a color person, I do 4 different colors, and I do my work for each piece with, that's just to help keep it straight. You definitely do not have to. But here's how that would look in this case if I was doing 4 different colors here. I would take the numerator with 1 color, and I would factor 2x, which in this case it's already 2 times x. So it doesn't really factor anymore. And then I would do the next piece, which is x minus 3. And here's where I have to talk a little bit about what factors are. Remember, factors are things that are whatted together. Do you remember? Multiply. Multiplied. It's something times something times something times something. This numerator, this x minus 3, that's not x times 3, right? So those are not factors. Whenever you see a minus or subtract, what you end up having to do is just group those things together in parentheses. It's just a special, you cannot break it down anymore. You just group it together, x minus 3, okay? Because you can't factor it. You can't make it into something times something. It's something minus something. And then for this, well, we're going to save that part for the last. Let's look over here at 6x squared. So 6x squared, we want to expand that. Remember, 6 is 2 times 3, and x squared is x times x. And then the reason why I saved that green one for last is because that's the longest method. What method did we use for 3 terms? AC method. So remember, our AC method comes from this idea that when you have standard form, you do a times c, what multiplies to a times c and adds to the middle term b. So here I don't have an a written, so I know that it is 1, and a times c is 12. So what multiplies to 12 and adds to negative 7, what can you think of? That multiplies 3 and 4 negatives, right? Negative 3, negative 4. What do we do with that? We rewrite the middle term. We split the middle term. So negative 7x becomes negative 3x, negative 4x, and then we bring down that 12, and we bring down that x squared. And then, do you remember what we do after that? And we had those 4 terms? Factor by grouping. Group this together, group those together. We're going to do GCF on those. What's the GCF in the first group? X, and the leftovers are x minus 3. What's the GCF in the second group? Nope. What kind of 4? Negative. So what's left over if I'm dividing out negative 4? What kind of 3? Minus. Because I'm really taking that positive 12 and dividing out a negative 4. Okay. So now what does all of this have in common? X minus 3, and the leftovers are x and minus 4. So I know we started this problem like 6 years ago, but we're not done. All we did was factor the numerators and denominators. So that was just step 1. Step 2 now is to combine them together. So I'm going to make one big fraction bar. And I'm going to take all my factors from the tops and put them in the top. So from the blue part, I had 2 times x. And the red part gave me x minus 3 in parentheses. It's a grouping. Okay, x is not a factor. Negative 3 is not a factor. It's one big group. And then when we put the bottoms together, what did I get from the green stuff? I got, and what did I get from the purple stuff? And now I see what cancels. Can you give me something that cancels? 2's cancel. X's. X minus 3 cancels. You see that? The whole group does. Now what do I have left over in the top? Nothing, a 1, right? Because really, when I'm canceling out the 2's, it's 2 divided by 2, which is really 1. X divided by x, which is really 1. And x minus 3 divided by itself, which is really 1. So my final answer is on top, 1 times 1 times 1, which is just 1. 3x is left over here. And then, oh, that's a minus 4. Sorry, that's my bad. This is a minus 4 right here. All right. That's a lot, right? That's okay. You don't have to like it. Number 1, I'm easing you into the problems. Look at number 1 compared to this example. But the only actually one thing has changed. The x minus 3. So everything else is the same except this one. So just factor that and then use the work we already did to try and finish this problem. But before you get started, x squared minus 9, what special rule is that one? The difference of 2 squares, because those are perfect squares. And remember, you take the square root of both of them, and you do what? You make a minus version and a plus version. So try this using that stuff, because everything else is the same from the example. So take a moment and try that. Okay, so you should have set up one big bar. And from the top left, the 2x just stays 2x. And then the top right, remember we had x minus 3, x plus 3. The bottom we did from the example, so that's x minus 3, x minus 4. And then 6x squared is 2 times 3 times x times x. Give me something that cancels. X minus 3, x minus 3, ¿qué más? 2 and an x. Anything else? No. So what do I have left over up top? In the bottom, what's left on the bottom? 3x, and then parentheses x minus 4. Very good. Right. I think you'll have kind of started on number 2, right? Okay, go ahead and work on number 2, and then we will talk about it as a group. How did you factor x squared minus 4? Okay. How did you factor 10x? Good. 2 times 5 times x. And I'm going to switch to teal now. I need another color. How did you factor x squared plus 5x plus 6? What did you get? X plus 3, x plus 2. Let me show you this process real fast, okay? This is AC method. A is 1. So A times C is 6. The middle term is 5. A lot of times, on this problem especially, people want to put this. What's wrong with these two numbers? 6 and negative 1. When you multiply, right, it would be negative 6. It adds to 5. Chrislon, what two numbers did you get? 3 and 2. That's right. So remember, here's what we do with those two numbers. We rewrite the middle term. We split it into two things. So we take 5x and we rewrite it as 3x plus 2x. And then we bring down the first term, the x squared, and the last term, the plus 6. And then what do I do after that, now that I have 4 terms? Grouping. So this first group has what in common? And the leftovers are x plus 3. Okay. Positive 2. Hayden, what do I do after this? What? So now I look at this entire group. Uh-huh. That's right. The leftover here is x. The leftover here is 2. So now I have factored all 4 things. Now I'm ready to put it back in a big fraction and see what cancels. So the upper left, the blue stuff gave me 5 times x. Upper right, the green stuff gave me x minus 2, x plus 2. The bottom stuff on the left, the teal, gave me x plus 3, x plus 2. And the right on the bottom, the red stuff, gave me 2 times 5 times x. Give me something that cancels. 5x, x plus 2, and that's it. Leaving me x minus 2 on top, and 2 times x plus 3 on the bottom. Your goal for the rest of class, and you may have your music while you work, is to get through 3 and 4 at least. We'll do 5 and 6 as warm-ups tomorrow. Okay, so your goal is 3 and 4. Hayden, you may go to the bathroom now.